Hello, my name is Ethan, and this is a continuing series of telling my stories, and which is just basically the facts, what happened, because I have many, many adventures I've gone through. And there's a reason that I'm telling all these, because there's a background to it, because I was doing something. I had certain knowledge that I could use in every situation. So the last 50 years, that's what I've been doing. I've been practicing this, and very successfully had access to people and places and work that I wasn't really qualified for on paper, but I was qualified in spirit. And that's really what I'm communicating, but that's not going to be, I'm not going to talk about it in this video. That is going to be in the book that's coming out next spring. Okay, so just wait for it. If you want a copy, send me a message that you're interested in buying it, because it will be by order only and by request only. It's not going to be available in bookstores or online. You have to order it. You have to want it. You have to ask for it, and then you'll be able to get it. Okay, because it's a very special book. It will describe what was going on in the background of my life at the time. What was I thinking? How did I get into that path of continuous adventure and continuous growth without limitations? That's where it really is. No limitations. And that's what I want to communicate. And that's what I've done in my life. And I think it's worth something. I think it may be worth something to you. And I think you may get value from it. Okay? Fantastic. All right, now. So, as you know from previous videos, I was suddenly, out of nowhere, had this epiphany. And I wanted to become a ballet dancer when I was 18. Up until then, I had no desire to be a dancer whatsoever. Anyway, so I went into it full throttle. 2 years later, I was accepted in the, this was when I was 18. 2 years later, I was accepted in one of the best schools in the world, Mudra, total theater school. So they had not only ballet, modern, they had African, flamenco, and many other disciplines. So it was, and its company was a ballet company, but it was not really a ballet company. It was a total theater company, because they were in the Greek tradition, because he was an admirer of ancient Greek. So that really attracted me. Simpatico, made him very simpatico to me. So his performances were large, they were large. And the men were very manly. They danced very manly. They weren't tiptoeing around, trying to look more whatever, trying to compete with the women, okay? They were like, they were like wild. They were like wild animals on stage. I like that, because that's how I was. So but when I got to the school, lo and behold, I discovered they were all like, excuse me, my gay friends, nothing personal, just telling a story about my past. So don't get offended. It's not about you. So, but when I got there, they're all raving queens and very aggressive homosexuals. So they were all coming on to me. Every day we used to get propositions for dinners and to go out with them. And other students went out, and they come back and tell me what they had, and steaks, and went to the best restaurant, and then they got to sleep in a huge bed. And I said, oh God. And meanwhile, what I was doing was, I didn't have enough money to eat, so I was always hungry. So I turned my bedroom into a drop-in center for traveling people back then. This is like late 70s. That was when hitchhiking was huge. So everybody used to exchange addresses. So whenever somebody was in town, they used to come and sleep on the couch or on the floor. They had sleeping bags. And then when you go to their city, and then you could go sleep on their floor. So it was an exchange, like informal, you know, like couch surfing, or floor surfing, or bed surfing, whatever. So, but there was one prerequisite I had: they had to bring food. So they'd come over. I'd always had about 5 or 6 people in my room, sleeping with sleeping bags and so forth. The girls used to usually come in my bed, so there was extra. I got extra attention. They didn't have to bring food; they were the food. Okay, enough of that. Now, so I was getting like really, really pissed off. I said, "Geez," I said, these guys have it easy. They can go have dinners and they can go have sex, and it all fits with the ballet, because everybody used to tease me back then. What are you doing here? If you're not gay, then look, everybody else is gay. What's wrong with you? You must be repressed, and you must be, in the closet or something. So there's something wrong with you. And so one day, out of sheer frustration, after finally accepting a dinner invitation with somebody who I knew from the first time 2 years, just a couple of months earlier, when I was went to see Bejarts' company at the Herod Atticus Theater, where I first saw my first ballet performance 2 years earlier, which inspired me to become a dancer. It was an epiphany of extreme magnitude. I can't describe it. It's like a sudden transformation. And anyway, so I went. Bejarts' company was playing at Herod Atticus, and I was getting ready to to start my studies in Belgium. And so I went there. It was all sold out. So I went there and I saw one dancer sitting out by the rocks, and I said, "Hey, hello, my name is Athanasius. I was accepted in Mudra." "Hey, hello." He says, "That's good." I said, "Well, I'm trying to get into to watch Bajar. I've never seen him in live. So can you work out a ticket, or is there standing room only? I can have a pass to go in, so I can see his company." He says, "Oh yeah, you can do better than that. Why don't you come tomorrow at 11 o'clock?" I said, 11 o'clock in the morning? He says, "Yeah." "You perform 11 o'clock in the morning?" "Oh, no. What we do, we have a class on stage with Bejar. You're welcome to come." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." Okay, so I went, and I had a class with a company. These are some of the best dancers in the world, okay? And there I was with just over 1 year training, starting at 18, now I was 20, and with a few breaks in between. So I was like, I was in heaven. And I went through the whole class. Even the end, when there's the jumps and the turns and everything, I was out there. I was like an animal, prowling the stage. And I had a little trick also I learned from Nureyev, by watching his films. So when you were going to jump, I just jumped a little late. So as they were starting to come down, I was going higher. So I was jumping just a split second. So as they were jumping, then I would start. And as they were falling, I would be the only one going. Anyhow, that was my experience. And but the important thing is, so there I am. One night, I'm so frustrated. I said, "God, why did you give me this passion this epiphany for dance? Why didn't you make me also a homosexual? What's wrong with you?" He says, then God answers, "Ethan, Tom, Athanasius, whatever your name is, you asked for something else as well, don't you remember?" I said, "No, what?" He says, "Well, you wanted to be different." I said, "Yeah." "Well, if you were the same as if you were homosexual, you would have never made it as far as you have, because what makes you different is what makes you good as well, because you don't have to put on the masculinity. You are masculine. You are a real lion going across the stage. They have to pretend to be lions. They're kittens. You're a real lion. Oh. And I said, damn. Anyway, so so after a while, I was at school. I was getting really frustrated. Everyone was going out to dinners and eating well and having fun and going to concerts and stuff. And I was sitting home with these, traveling people, listening to their stories of travels and eating, rice and everything, and spaghetti and omelet and Spanish omelets and so forth. Because I couldn't get enough food because I was working out so much. I needed the caloric intake was very high. So at one point, the one that I met out there in the theater says, "You want to go out for dinner? I'm going out. You want to come with me?" And I look at him and I said, "Yeah, okay." So what can happen? I'll just say no and that's it. He'll get embarrassed and don't bother me again. So we go out. We have a nice dinner and steak and wine and so we finish up. We're talking about different things. He wanted to train me in the morning before class. He says, I have the same problem because he has a similar body as mine. He's very tight. And he says, you need some extra work to, stretch because, so I can come in the morning, if you like, before class, and we can work together. I said, oh, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. I'm playing the innocent like I don't know what's going on. Oh, okay, sure, thank you. So anyway, we'll leave. We're walking because he lived close by to my apartment. And then he says, "You want to come upstairs for a drink?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." So I go upstairs. He puts a little shot of I don't know what it was. It was some kind of brandy or something. And then we're talking, and then suddenly he puts his hand on my knee. I pick it up. I said, "No." I said, "You took me out to dinner because you thought you were going to go, I was gay and I was going to go to bed with you. Now you put your hand on my knee? Is that why?" So I got confrontational because I was pissed off. I thought he was straight. And he says, "Well, I'm not gay either." And he starts bawling his eyes out like he fell on my shoulder and crying. He said, "Oh, I have a wife." "Oh, what the hell are you doing then?" He says, "Well, when I got into the company, Bejarts wanted to put me in this choreography, which was an amazing solo that he did. He's become world famous. I'm not going to name him. Some of you may know him. Just keep it to yourselves." And anyway, so he said, "Yeah." So he says, I'm not gay either. And what happened? Well, I had to, in order to, for him to do this choreography on me, I had to go to his bed. I said, "So?" And then he says, "Then I liked it." I said, "Oh, God, he liked it." I heard this one time before with somebody who had gone to jail. He said, then he liked it. After being raped so many times in jail, he says, "I liked it after a while." I thought, oh, God. I said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do this." I get propositioned all the time. I say no, and it's very frustrating. I said, because, God gave me this epiphany to be a dancer, but he didn't make me gay. What can I say? He's a job half done. So we had a good laugh. Anyhow, so I didn't stay too long. After 6 months, I left because the pressure to go to dinners and all this got too big. And Bejarts used to come into my class at the end of the class for like half an hour, 20 minutes, him and Jorge Don, his first dancer. And he used to sit there and look at me, like actually stare, like don't look at anybody else. Now, I enjoyed it because, hey, I'm dancing for Bejarts. I want to get into his company. I want to get into his company through the front door, not the back door. You know what I mean? So I was going, yeah, okay. I think I got their attention. So then they left. They went for a tour in Paris. They went on a tour with the company. So And I couldn't take the pressure anymore, so I left. This dancer came, this teacher came from Israel, Flora Cushman, who was one of the best educators in modern dance, and I really liked her because she could make me feel pain, and I enjoyed it. I would sit there trembling, excruciating pain and cramps, and smile. She says, "Okay, Athanasius, okay, calm down. If you can't hold the pose, don't hold the pose." I said, "Yeah, but you have to. How else am I going to learn?" Anyway, so we were simpatico, so we got along, and she called me her Greek boy. "Ah, my Greek boy, how are you today?" I said, "Not well." "Why?" She says, "I can't hit my leg to my ear yet." You know, everybody else was going to the ear. Mine was going just barely up to my waist, my rib cage. Anyhow, she also brought a dancer, a male dancer, and his girlfriend from Israel. They happened to be in Europe because she was studying in Switzerland, and they stayed at my place because they were traveling. They had no place to stay. Of course, come on, I got room. So anyway, they came in, they brought some food. I was happy, and we became friends because he was a dancer in our company, and he invited me to go to Israel. He says, "Listen, if you want to come to Israel, anytime, just come, and you can be in Flora's company, and I have a company too, and you can practice and learn and perform. There's a lot of opportunities to perform in Israel. There's not that many male dancers." I said, "Oh, really? I like that." So he said, so after 6 months at Bejar, company at Bejar school, I left because I'd gone over to. Oh yeah, what happened? He asked me to. They were returning to Switzerland because that's where the girls studied. And he says, "Why don't you come with us?" I said, "I don't have money to go there." He says, "We're hitchhiking." I said, "It's snowing." He said, "That's okay. What do we do at night?" He said, "We sleep in doorways of apartments or like train stations." I said, "All right, sure." So I tell the artistic director, "Listen, I have to go. My father's very sick. I have to go to Greece tomorrow, and I'll be back when I can. Is that okay?" He says, "Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. Bien sûr, bien sûr." So we leave. 3 days later, we still haven't even reached Strasbourg, and practically walked through most of the way there. And so the girl left us because she had to go back to her classes. So she got there like 2 days earlier than before us. And anyway, we finally got there. I stayed there for about a month, 3 weeks. And then I heard that Bejar was having something in my eye. So Bejar was having open auditions in Paris. No prerequisite, just show up, get your number, and go up on stage and show them what you got. I said, "Oh, okay." So I went. So we hitchhiked to Paris on a truck. I remember. And so I would show up in this rehearsal at the Pompidou Center, and there I am with my number, and the members of his company were sitting on the seats. They look at me and they start laughing. They said, "What are you doing here? Like, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm dancing." Shh. So anyway, the first cut comes and I'm still standing. The next cut, they call in their numbers. I'm still standing. The next cut, I'm still there. And I said, "Oh, maybe my chutzpah worked. Maybe Bejar, that's what he wants. He wants them lively." And so then he comes up to me, like nose to nose, like this, as I'm doing my, on the bar, and says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm rehearsing. I'm auditioning for your company." Says, you want to go into the company? You stay in school. I said, yeah, but I want to go into the company from the front door, not the back door. And he looks at me like, he goes back, and then he cuts some more people. There I am, the last 10. I mean, the last 10. And he just needs 2 people. So I said, okay, maybe the chutzpah worked. Like, he likes that. You know, he likes when somebody stands up to him. And anyway, he cuts me the next time. I walk off the stage. And then the dancers all surround me from the company and said, what are you doing here? I said, I came to audition, can't you see? He said, yeah, stay in the company, stay in the school, and then you'll go into the company in 2 years. I said, yeah, but I don't want to go in the company through the front door, the back door. I want to go through the front door. They all start laughing. They crack up. Bejarts is on the stage trying to teach. He do the class, and he just looks at them. They all just, go back to their seats, scuttle away. So anyway, I go back, end up finding my way back to the school, hitchhike back to Brussels. I walk in, and I was late. Usually, if you're late, they send you back home. So I said, bonjour, madame, to the artistic director. Bonjour, madame. I said, bonjour, Athanasius. The teacher that I stood up before I left, he said, come to dinner. I said, yes, tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Okay. He never said, bonjour, Jose, monsieur. I said, bonjour, Athanasius. Not where were you? I waited for you. The dinner got cold. I put all that effort. What happened to you? The artistic director never said anything, like, how's your father? What were you doing in Paris, auditioning for his company? Why did you lie to me? Nothing. Nobody said anything to me. And I could just move around without any restrictions. So I thought, okay, that's nice. I didn't know what was going on, so I just kept going on with my lessons and so forth. And then one of the dancers came back from Paris, and I said to him, listen, what happened? What happened after you auditioned? He said, didn't you hear? I said, no. He says, Bejarts called him, the artistic director, and told her, if he comes back, make sure he stays there until I get there. Make sure you keep him there until I get back. I said, oh, shit. Here comes the indecent proposal. So a couple of days later, the company was coming back the next week. I walk into Flora Cushman's class, and I said, Flora, I got to go. I said, where are you going? I'm going to Jerusalem. Why? I'll wait for you. I'm done here. She said, I can't stay here no more. She says, Bejarts coming. He wants to talk to you. He says, I know. That's why I'm leaving. So I got on a plane with $100 in my pocket, a one-way ticket to Israel. And the rest of the story is the next video, because this went way too long. It's 23 minutes. I have to cut it in 3 parts or something. All right. Thanks for listening. Do your thing. Please subscribe and like it and share it. And when you get the book, you'll understand what was going on behind the scenes in my life that gave me the kind of energy and the kind of courage to do all this. Okay? It's going to be fun. Well, thank you for joining me, and until next time, I'm Nathan Gadanidis, and have fun. You only live once. Do what you want, and go all the way. No fear. I remain untamed, untrained, and unbroken. That's the title of the book. Okay, take care. Well, there was one other thing. The moral of the story is that I found this out much later, of why Bejarts was coming into my class and watching me so intently, is because like 3 years after I ran away from the school, he did this choreography, which was using Miki Stodorakis music and called the Greek dances. And so that was the indecent proposal. That's why he was checking me out. That's why he wanted to talk to me when he got back from Paris. So So my instinct was right. And that's what the book's about. How to refine your instincts so you make the right decisions without thinking. Because that saved my life. It was a life and death situation. If I stayed and I said yes to the indecent proposal because of my lust, absolute lust to be a dancer in his company, I would possibly be dead. And that's the moral of the story. Death is around the corner. You just don't know. You walk out a couple of seconds earlier, truck hits you, you're dead. So, more on that later. Thank you for staying with it and watching this, and until next time.